Joining us to break all this down for the bank in China, Chen Jiahe is in Beijing. He's the Chief Strategist for Cinda Securities. And economist John Perkins joins us live from Seattle. He's an activist and author of the best-selling books, Hoodwinked and Confessions of an Economic Hitman. To both of you gentlemen, thank you very much and welcome to the show. Let me start with you, Chen Jiahe. I want to ask you, what's the difference between the founding members and the regular members for our audience? Is it just the timing of it?
Well, currently we don't see a very significant difference between the founding member and regular member because the rules are not yet set. But the very significant difference we can see here is the founding members are going to set the rules. This is a very big difference. Also, I think they probably have some privilege within the rule. I mean, you have to make a difference between the founding member and the regular member. Probably like they can have a special seat in the board, or they can have some privileges which will come out when the rules are set.
Yeah. Hey, John, I want to ask you something. I mean, you've been following this for a little while here, and your perspective is quite interesting. How did this, a simple little bank of $50 billion, now 100, became so controversial? And let's be honest, it's become political too, right?
Absolutely. You know, the United States has taken a very strong stance against this bank from the beginning because we've controlled the World Bank. And in essence, the Asian Development Bank, although Japan has a big role to play in that. But when we've used these banks, unfortunately, during the past 2 or 3 decades to promote big corporations, U.S. business, we've used them in very selfish ways. And now this new bank comes along with China at the lead and offering perhaps to do something very differently. We don't know. We'll see what comes of that. But it's a true threat to the U.S.'s power in the financial institutions of the world. So the United States has been very, very resistant to this. Personally, I think it's a great thing because I think the competition like this will make it a lot better for all of the recipient countries, those who will benefit from loans and grants from these banks.
A little competition, if not a lot of competition, is always good for the markets. Jiahe, I want to ask you, so the U.S. is resistant, and the media has made a little bit, poked fun at it, both domestic media and international media. I'm just curious, from China's perspective, why does it matter whether the U.S. is on board or not on board with respect to the AIIB?
Well, I think because Chinese government always think United States is a competition on some extent, because U.S. has always been taking that stance, thinking China is an emerging threat. So it looks like whether if United States is joining in shows whether if the policy is against China or helping China, cooperating China. So I think that's why people are so concerned.
But you look at the amount, 50 billion, now it's going to be 100. It's likely to be more and more as sort of time goes on here. Basically, all the countries would like to participate because when the deals or contracts get given away, they're all going to want a piece of that business, right? So ultimately, is there really going to be a difference between the founding members and the members and sort of everyone outside, or are they not going to get a piece of the pie?
Well, I think probably U.S. will join in later on. I mean, because this is a business after all. It's an economic matter. It's not a military. Some people say it's a political matter, but when economy goes to some extent large enough, it becomes politics. But it's economics after all. So I think the United States will probably join in after half a year, since it runs well.
John, I mean, this is interesting, fascinating that maybe the U.S. needs to take 2 steps back here. I don't want to say that, but maybe was it a mistake that there was so much resistance to begin with?
I think it was an absolute mistake. I understand why they did it. The politics of Washington drove them to do it. Let's face it, the conservatives in Washington would have hollered and screamed if they hadn't if they hadn't opposed it. But the fact of the matter is, I think it's a shame the United States is not a founding member, because here we are saying, well, we don't really trust the social policies and the environmental policies of this bank, and yet it's the founding members who are going to have a say in policy. So on one corner of our mouths, we're saying, you know, we're afraid that this bank isn't going to have good policies. On the other side of our mouth, we're saying, yeah, but we're not really ready to jump in and be part of the policy-making process, and that's hypocritical, let's face it.
Some people have told me that, look, it's going to be competition between the World Bank, the Asian Development Bank, and all these other NGOs out there and think tanks who do have money to invest or co-invest with these other organizations, in this case specifically the AIIB. Others have told me that it's not competition at all. Which one is it?
Well, I think that remains to be seen. But, you know, as I travel around the countries in Asia and the Middle East and Latin America, and let's not forget that we've got another bank coming along too, the BRICS Bank, which will have a big influence in Latin America. These countries are saying, you know, for the longest time, we've had to essentially be servants to the World Bank or the IMF or the United States' form of banking. We either had to take it or leave it on their conditions, and now there's a competitor out here. And so they're looking at it as a very good thing that there is competition, and that in fact it'll probably modify the policies of the World Bank and the IMF. They'll have to change, they'll have to come around. It's going to be very, very interesting to watch how this all transforms.
Jiahe, you have the last word. I just want to ask you, one, some questions about the regulatory issues of it, right? How is it going to be regulated? How are they going to decide which projects get money, which projects don't make money? And they're going to try and take the politics out of it, but it's going to be tough, isn't it?
Well, politics is definitely going to stay here when you have 40 countries working together. But I think China really wants to ask everyone to sit down and talk about it. I mean, that's why China provided 50% of the currency, but invited everybody to join in. So it's going to be a discussion across the countries. And I think especially another important thing is that you have to listen to the locals, because every infrastructure project will be built in a local country. You have to listen to them, listen to what they think about this. You have to talk to them.
All right, well, this story is not going away anytime soon. We're going to have much, much more on this, but we're out of time today. Chen Jiahe from Cinda Securities, thank you very much. Author John Perkins, live for us in Seattle as well. Thank you.